At MDIS, we offer a range of academic programs from pre-degree to postgraduate level to suit various interests and career objectives in the areas of business, media, psychology, engineering, technology, safety and environmental management, life sciences, health and nursing, fashion and jewelry design, tourism and hospitality, languages and education, as well as preparatory courses for the GCE or A-levels and Cambridge IGCSE. Next, let's hear it for the faculty of School of Business and Social Sciences.
A very good morning to one and all. Welcome back. It's nice to see all of you again. I'm Dr. Richard Chua, the head of school for the Business and Social Sciences here at MDIS. And today I'm very excited because for this time round, I've invited two of my best senior lecturers from the school to have a conversation with me in order to try to see how we can be more relevant and also how can we train ourselves and to meet up with the very dynamic business and also communications environment in Singapore, and with a tinge of compassion in terms of how do we go about promoting more compassion and love through psychology. And welcome, guys. And on my left here is Dr. Amir. And on my extreme left is Dr. Elby from the business section. Okay. Right, Dr. Amir from the psychology section. Dr. Amir is fantastic. He is a trained cognitive psychologist. What's that?
Now, cognitive psychology is one of the umbrellas of the 5 umbrellas: social, clinical, developmental, biological, and cognitive. And cognitive psychology deals with mental processes. Why we think, how we think. And we have always, I want to tell you this, Dr. Richard, we have a best friend. We always do, every individual does.
Yes.
And that best friend resides here. You notice we are talking to him the most, or her, but since I'm a him, so I will say I'm talking to him the most. And he will guide me, and sometimes I even argue with him. The only problem is when this person starts to be heard. You know, when we have people who are ill, and they go into an institution and they start talking to themselves, and they talk in 2 voices. That's the problem when the disorder comes, when this person is starting to be heard by everybody else.
So how's the process like in terms of communication, really?
Now, the process is very easy. We ask ourselves, it's through what we have learned. And this person, maybe he holds the learning for like I'm already an elderly man, as you can see from my hairstyle.
So you're very young at heart.
Okay, but we have learned from young. So a lot of our feelings, what we have learned has been repressed in a defense mechanism. So this guy up here tells me that even it is repressed, he reminds me of the past.
Okay.
So
because in my area of specialty, in communications, we are always communicating to people via the mass communication medium. Like now we are addressing and speaking to a lot of people out there, and we are actually sharing our views and also connecting with them. But at the end of the day, this conversation is actually flowing through so many data throughout in the air and to them. And how do we go about presenting ourselves in that sense, you know, like just how we present ourselves to our friends, family members, and people at large?
Thank you for that. Very good. I really would advise us that we must make an impact. What difference are we making in these people's lives? When we talk to them, you see, when we make a cognitive judgment, it is not only from what we see, it's also from our elders. What they call, when Freud talked about the ego, superego. Now we as lecturers are the superego to our students. And what impacts, what differences, what cognitive thinking do we put into their heads? So that's how we have to impact them. coming to think of it, you must really hit them hard.
Yeah, that's true.
How will they benefit from it?
That's true.
Because if they're not going to benefit from it, seriously, everybody says, hey, I can go to anybody else.
Yeah, and this benefit in mass and communication is really through the medium, right? The choice of the medium that we choose, what are the ways and how do we go about talking to people, how do we communicate the ideas, and most importantly also is that how do we set an example, right? Yes. I think this is also something that media and communications are also really care about deeply.
Something else I'd like to say.
Yes.
Okay, now we have association, Asian Psychological Association. Mm-hmm. The Asian Psychological Association is like the APA. Of course, the APA is worldwide. Mm-hmm. The Asian Psychological Association is very young. It's just a couple of years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to say that I'm the representative of Singapore for the Asian Psychological Association. Yeah. Now, I have spoken at a few, not a few, maybe 3 conferences. I delivered papers. One was on suicide. Mm-hmm. I've also written for some journals. One article appeared in the MDIS journal, mm-hmm. and another 3 have appeared in the World's Psychological Registry. Mm-hmm. So we have printed this, and I feel that as you develop, you also have to come up with your own theories. Yeah. You know, so we have
creating knowledge, right?
Yes. So we have, you know, the schools of psychology which you have learned. It stopped at the cognitive school of psychology. Now what I and MDIS teaches is how to apply. We'll come to that later. And we have also developed our own school, which we feel that one day will be recognized as the 5th school of psychology, which is the metacognitive behaviorist school.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So we have come up with that. And of course, like I say, if you come to us, we will work on it together. So I'll hand you back to the
We have
moderator.
spoken a lot about compassion. We talk about responsibility. We talk about setting a good example. Dr. Albee is a marketing specialist in our school, and I always learn a lot from him. So today I'm going to learn from you. In terms of marketing, business, sales, management, how do we go about presenting ourselves in that sense in order to communicate, and most importantly is to convince and also to persuade our customers, right, into buying into our products or brand. Share with us some insights.
Absolutely. On this. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard, and thank you, Dr. Amir, for that for those wonderful insights. It's wonderful to be here with you. My name is Dr. Albee, as Dr. Richard said, and some of my concepts have been published by the Wharton Business School, and the most recent one was Conflict is a Marketing Tool, and that's been published and republished by Wharton Business School. And I think one of the marvelous things that we are seeing here in MDIS, in this very conversation, is how we use management. We're employing communications, which Dr. Richard represents. We are employing psychology, which Dr. Amir represents. And we are employing all these tools in order to sell products and services. Now, marketing products and services is not just about selling. It's about filling a gap in people's lives, fulfilling a need in people's lives. Because, okay, it's true that you can sell just about any product once to a customer. You can probably deceive him into buying it. But if you want a lifelong customer, and even longer than that, if you are a multinational company that wants to be around for 100 years, then you really need to think about the psychology of the consumer. You need to think of the communications that you're going to use. What is that need of the consumer that you are going to fulfill?
You're really point on, you know, when we talk about gaps, like for example, we have heard so many people selling things to us. We have also seen so many YouTube videos telling us how to earn money quick, right? So these are things that we see every day. But what is most important is that although everybody's addressing the gaps, right, or the needs of the people, but they don't exactly addressing the so-called real need. And now at this point in our conversation, you can see that the real need in terms of psychology, the things that we all find that the gap and also the need that we need to fulfill in our lives, and also in terms of marketing and sales is really the things that we need in our lives so that to make our lives better. And in media and communications is really about how do we go about positioning ourselves, right? In terms of brand. Like for example, a lot of business, right? And also my friends, for example, even personal. And they say that, oh, how do I go about branding myself? How do I go about positioning myself so that people will see me in the way that I want them to see, right? But this is, again, a very challenging task, isn't it, Dr. Amir? Sometimes we don't even know how to decipher what exactly do I like or not like, which I think most of my students were saying that, oh, you know, Dr. Richard, I really do not know what to do, what to go on, and I'm finding myself. What other things that they feel that the students should look at in terms of finding themselves in order to kind of present a certain brand?
Okay. Now, I really feel that we are moving, we are evolving, whether it is business school, psychology, media, we are all evolving. Why and how? What was popular or what was correct 5 years ago is no more correct today. Why is that? Because even education is dynamic. We are moving forward. You know, that it is said, I read once that the issues, education, academic, what appeared 5 years ago is already obsolete. In fact, companies that were doing well 5 years ago are not doing well today. Companies that are doing well today, haven't even heard about it. So how does it go about? Let me tell you a story which I found very amusing yesterday. In fact, it was just yesterday. I went back home and my wife told me, she said, Ami, that's what she calls me, and she said, Ami, I bought so much vegetables today. And I said, how come? She said, yeah, I went to this market. No need to mention market. She said, this guy, he wanted to sell me this Japanese cucumber. It was so cheap. I have never found Japanese cucumber so cheap before. I said, what happened? She said, oh, he sold me these 3 cucumbers, Japanese cucumbers, for $1. And then I say, what happened? Then she said, oh, then he recommended that I buy cauliflower, I buy cabbage, I buy this. And she bought about 6 to 7 different items.
That's really sales, right?
Yeah.
That's really good sales, persuasion.
Yes. So I told myself, but of course I didn't want to tell her, So I told myself, this is what we call in psychology the low ball technique. In other words, I offer you something, and it is happening today. You may not be aware of it, but you accept it because it is so, appealing to buy that. And after that, because you sort of get that trust with this guy, you buy 5, 6 different items.
Let me tell you, I didn't fall into that trap yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I was with my friends there, and I look at this laptop. I really love it. It's so fantastic. It's light. It has got all the wonderful things and everything else. And say, oh, Mr. Chua, if you want to buy this laptop, is the price of this wonderful price is only like here now. Tomorrow we're not going to have that anymore.
Yes.
And with that small little window of time to make a decision, and I tell you, most of the time people already make the wrong decision, right?
Yes.
It's because they will go and buy the things that they like. Because, like for example, if I travel all the way to that place and to see a laptop, half of my heart already
Agreed.
I'm going to buy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But it's just a little minor difference, be it like a free mouse, a mouse pad, or even like a stylus pen, right? These things will make us change our minds, right? So I think in business also, this is also something that...
it's something that we call a loss leader. Actually, it's wonderful how business now integrates communications and psychology into it, and which is something that we are doing in MDIS. It's called a loss leader. That means if I have a supermarket and if I advertise that, hey, there's a soft drink that's available for a very, very low price, that's going to be very, very attractive. You are going to come to the supermarket to buy the soft drink. But obviously, when you come to the supermarket to buy the soft drink, just like Dr. Amir's wife, you're going to buy many other things as well.
Yes.
So the supermarket is taking a loss on that soft drink, but it's leading you to other products and leading you to buy lots of other products.
Lying at the crux of it is really about a value proposition, right? especially in communications, when we talk about personal branding, and also in our school that as all of us are promoting right now, this idea of interdisciplinary education, which I personally have been looking and thinking about. For example, how do I go about presenting my own brand? In that sense, as someone who researches in entertainment, someone who researches in the arts, and how do I go about brand myself? And again, we have to ask that very crucial question. What exactly is the value that I am able to give to people, right? And there's three areas. One is functional. Am I supposed to be a good talent manager, right? Then that's the function that I do for the industries. And also, how do I go about encouraging self-expression from them? Like, for example, being associated with me, working with me, you can sense that we are on the right track. You know, like in terms of education, everything will be fine, right? Because at the end of the day, we are very strict and stringent, rigor. So that's that kind of self-expression where students are also be able to be proud to be with us in that sense, right? And self-expression and also association. You know, it's just like buying certain laptops, right? That you carry the laptop, you feel like, wow, you're so different and all that. So at the end of the day, studying in MDIS, and especially with the School of Business and Social Sciences, we also have that pride and also that brand in that sense that a part of us, and being a student in our school is fantastic. So how about interdisciplinary education? Right? I think what at this point in time you would have already know that we have already blended in so many different concepts from all different schools, different sections and different disciplines into our conversation, and they all flow in the sense because they work with each other. It's like a river, right?
Right.
And it's always flowing and moving together, integrating. So about interdisciplinary education in our school, what are your insights, both of you?
Okay, for interdisciplinary, I feel in psychology, it has to be applicable.
Yeah.
When Dr. Richard first brought up this idea of interdisciplinary, it is not double degrees or double masters or whatever. It is something that you can apply. Remember the good old days when you were saying that this guy is academic, this guy is street smart. Today you have to be academic as well as street smart. What have you learned that can be applied? Formerly, unfortunately, education was very theoretical. It was all theory based.
The old days.
Yes, the old days. Now I'm talking about people like Sigmund Freud, of course, nothing to do. He's one of the best psychologists ever.
Yep.
And we have neo-Freudians, with people like Erich Fromm and Jung and Erikson, etc., Horney. Now they looked at society as very negative. It was very unfortunate, but why? Because they were always looking at people with disorders. And you know the Trident, which stands for the psychology school or the psychology concept. Now, we in this place now, in MDIS, we look at students as positive and hungry. Hungry for knowledge that they can apply.
And the drive too.
Yes, and the drive and the motivation. As Dan Pink had said, what is motivation? He says it was autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So in other words, when you have a motivation, it must be purposeful. So these students who come in, and I've always said this, they are our first priority. We must make sure that they learn, they study academics that can be applied to the real world.
Absolutely.
And for them to, all of them come here, they spend some money, they are, like I said, they are hungry, you know. And I'll come to that term of hunger afterwards, but they must have that drive. So we must give them a purpose and show them the way how they can fulfill that purpose by applying what they have learned here, interdisciplinary.
Absolutely.
Dr. LB.
I think one of the wonderful things that we are learning here in MDIS, along with our students, is how all three of the streams are all merging into one and giving our students a much better, a much stronger
Standing.
base with which they can go out and do great work in the world. For instance, if you're working in a multinational, or if you're running your own business, if you're starting a small restaurant, you would need to know how to manage the restaurant, of course, which a typical management degree will teach you. But you also need to understand the psychology of the customers, which is where psychology comes in. And you also need to communicate with the customers, maybe personally, maybe through advertising, which is where communications comes in.
Yeah.
So what we are trying to produce is a well-rounded student who's ready to take on the world.
And this is a very increasingly important skill because we are now, post, I don't say post-COVID, but we are kind of slowly moving out of that. But we are also seeing the world is in a very uncertain, right? And I think a lot of our students and parents included are all wondering how do we go about navigating this new world. And what we feel very important in the school is that we should have that skill to be able to integrate all the knowledge that we learn. And therefore, while doing your own specialization, like for example, you might be doing airport management, because this is very important right now, right? During the COVID times, where how do you manage the airline industry, travel, and everything else. But such a specialized knowledge could also be used, in terms of getting all the different wonderful inputs, right, from psychology, from business, and this kind of cross-pollination is something that we encourage. And from there, we are able to see that once you are out there, through the different workshops that we do almost every day, that we are able to get everything together and better prepared. Yeah, and this is something that we all focus on a daily basis. Let's talk a bit about mentorship then. Because just now I spoke a little bit about how do we go about working with our students and also mentoring them and bring them together. How is it like?
In the School of Psychology, or rather School of Business and Social Sciences, we will not shut the door for anybody. Mentorship is something very individualistic. Do you think you need a mentor? Nobody is going to force you to do it. But if you think you need a mentor, we are there. Now, let me tell you this. There's a guy in Singapore, he's supposed to be the Forex king, and I've spoken to him individually, and I asked him, why is mentoring so important? He says that he became so-called the Forex king because he had a lot of guidance. And guidance doesn't come easy. You have to have, I think the first main thing you have to have with your mentor is trust. Whether he has really your well-being at heart. So if he has your well-being at heart, I would suggest jump into it. Make appointments, see him. Look, nobody has the time. Everybody says, I'm busy, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Now, I can assure you this. In our school, in the School of Business and Social Sciences, even if we don't have the time, we will make the time to see you. Because mentorship is something, it's not pulling you, it's just guiding you.
Yeah.
Not hand-holding, but advising. Now, if you want to take the mentor's words, etc., it's up to you. Or if you don't want to, it's really up to you. However, it is a key in education today. In the School of Psychology, we have lots of discussions, group discussions. Yeah. Now, one person per class will be the leader of that particular group. Next week, another leader. Yeah. Why do I do that? Because I feel everybody should have his say. Now, I've been with Dr. Richard here, who is the head of school. Now, he has spoken to me many times and asked, never has Dr. Richard said, oh, can you do this? Never. He has always said, what do you think? We are planning of this. You should know because you are the expert. You are the senior lecturer. So this kind of thing makes a person go together, and he feels that we as a senior, I could be his mentor because I have been the former head of school. Yeah. So that gives students that drive.
Yes.
That drive.
Yeah.
That sense of ownership.
Yeah.
That sense of responsibility. I
Dr.
think that's
Amir,
very good.
I really want to say this here today, because I see you work behind the scenes every day. You speak to students, you counsel them, and you bring them together and I see that support and love that they tell you and appreciative gestures. These are things that I see every day. I just want to take this opportunity to really put this out here because this is something that I've learned so much, and also every day is a humbling experience because how do we work with students coming together? I always believe that we are unable to change, unable to tell you what to do. But what we can do is that we are here, keep you company, cheering you along every day, and hope that everything will be well and good. Because at the end of the day, you are charting your own life, charting your own future, and knowing what exactly you want to do. Because I will never know, because I'm not in your mind or the body of yours. But I think what we can do is to kind of tell you, well, hopefully you don't treat us as naggy people, but we share with you a little bit of our experience, like what we have been through, the unique journeys, roads, and also the stories that we have got, right? Dr. LB has got rich experiences and journeys too.
Our mentorship generally we've been operating at 3 levels. That means you have students who are extremely good at a particular module.
Yeah.
Now, generally, you would say, hey, they don't need mentorship. They are very good students. But we've always felt that if a student is very good at a module, that's a module that he should really focus on and do even better. So we've always gone the extra mile with students who are very good at a particular module. Of course, there are students who are generally good at most, who may be very, very good at most modules, but may find a particular module. For instance, you may take, finance or, something which involves numbers.
Yep.
So,
which I'm very bad with numbers.
Yes,
That's why I'm trained in comms.
Statistics.
So most of us have these issues.
Yeah.
So our mentorship program also takes care of students who are finding a particular module difficult or finding a particular section of a module difficult. And all our lecturers, whether it's not just marketing, whether it's human resources, whether it's statistics, all our lecturers have always gone the extra mile, and we have mentorship sessions all the time to make sure that the entire class is moving forward and moving together to do well, to learn the module, and to go out in the world to really flourish.
Yeah, each and every one of us, right, students, all have our own journeys. And these different journeys have got different unique situations. I always say that we try not to, like, you're better than me, right? On this big ladder that everyone is climbing and trying to say who is better than each other. But at your specific level, if you really live at this moment, right, and you know that this is the thing that I can do, the improvements I can make at this moment in time, if there's already an improvement, that's great. You get what I mean? So there isn't a need to do that. Like for some students who are really good in some of the subjects, they have a different set of stress, right? Different set of stress factors as well. Like for example, how do I go about getting the extra mark? When you are really good in something, your subjects, getting that extra mark, 1 or 2 marks is difficult.
Yes.
Right? But if you are kind of like trying your best to move towards that, getting the next 5 marks, it's not difficult, but it's a great achievement. So therefore, these differences in terms of getting marks, higher or lower, it all are different. So that's why we also don't encourage our students to compare or to kind of compete with each other, but looking specifically at their own world and also to see where the general standards are, the mean and the average. Then from there, how do we go about improving ourselves? And I think in mentorship, this is something that I stress every day, is that we stay with our students, move along and see how things they go, try to tell them, hey, don't worry about things and don't look at other people, and then we can move on it together. And also this is something that, at various levels, because in the School of Business and Social Sciences, we have got master program. We also have got doctorate programs as well, where Dr. Albee is the supervisor for the doctorate programs. So at the doctorate level, it's very different. I think the last time when you guys saw me, I had a doctoral student, right, talking about his experiences. So therefore, all at different levels. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is,
I think to some extent, I would say that we teachers are a kind of, we are at a level, okay, the students have come from their, from the nest with their parents, right? And in future, they're going to be with a boss in an office. So we, the teachers, are the buffer zone. We are parents at one level, and we're also preparing them to meet their boss.
Right.
So we are the zone in between. And I think that's what MDIS teachers are really good at. We are reassuring parents as well as the students themselves that your children are safe with us emotionally and academically.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we are preparing them for their bosses. We are preparing them for the world outside.
Yeah.
It's always a balance.
How do you balance this mindset? Like, for example, from home, so comfortable, right? Studying with my friends and teachers. Then suddenly I go into the working world and I say, oh, these are the people whom I do not know. We are being married together by HR.
Yes.
Right? So how do we change that mindset?
You see, it's not a matter of changing their mindset. I think people will adapt.
Yeah.
It's just, do they adapt quickly or do they adapt slowly?
But we have the ability to adapt.
Yes, everybody has the ability to adapt. And that is why here at MDIS, Dr. LB will talk about the black swan in a while. But I would like to tell you all this. We didn't see the pandemic coming. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw the pandemic. However, there is a law, Murphy's Law. Maybe I'm sure all of you have heard about it. That if anything bad is going to happen, it will happen. And how did we prepare for it? MDIS, I must say, we prepared for it. Our schools did not close down, etc., as many schools did. We foresaw that if things go wrong, how are we going to look at it? And like I said, even I'm not saying that we predicted the pandemic, but we predicted that if something goes wrong, it will go wrong. And I would like Dr. LB to talk about the black swan theory a little bit, so at least they know what I'm talking about.
The Black Swan events are very, very interesting events at a very theoretical level. Black Swan events are any event that is totally unpredicted, something that nobody predicted would happen. Black Swan events can be positive events like the coming of the internet, which has completely transformed the world and which we never expected, nobody predicted. But Black Swan events can, of course, be also pretty disastrous, like the pandemic. And the technique to handle Black Swan events at a psychological level as well as other levels is that you have to accept that you couldn't predict it. But once the Black Swan event has hit you, you have to adapt quickly to it. It could be the coming of the internet, it could be the COVID-19. And I think one of the very, very useful lessons that we've learned in entrepreneurship from the entrepreneurship module is that all great entrepreneurs look on every event as an opportunity. It could be a positive event, it could be a negative event, it could be the pandemic, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, if you look at when the pandemic hit, you assume that it would be disastrous for all companies. But Microsoft sensed a huge opportunity. They saw that Zoom was doing extremely well, and they have something called Microsoft Teams, which wasn't doing well at all and which they didn't give too much importance to. But the moment the pandemic hit, they said, we are going to make sure that Microsoft Teams is going to be #1 in this area. So the pandemic has hit, but Microsoft has taken it as an opportunity to increase the revenue, to sell more products, become even bigger than ever before.
This is so true in comms, media and communications, where we don't quite really look at black swans because we are always reacting and positioning ourselves and responding to what our audiences give us, right? So we feed that energy from the audience and feedbacks and comments on the social media, networks and channels, and when we react accordingly. But the black swan theory actually has a certain kind of hitting us on the head to really understand what exactly is the crisis and also how do you go about working on that, and also have a certain kind of planning behind it to know that before I do my communications, which is ever changing, what kind of channels, what are the mediums that we should use, and also what is the messaging, how do we go about positioning ourselves for our companies, or even for ourselves, or even for whatever courses that we make. How do we go about doing that positioning and to change accordingly to the environment, right? So this is again something that is so dynamic, and within ourselves, within our one specialization, definitely not enough, because we are like, we are like superheroes with only one power, is it? Because we study so hard for so many years, and we are very specialized in our own area, and that's the point where we all need to work with each other, so that we feed knowledge and we are able to get things running together. Yeah. So I think this is the very essence of what mentorship is about. Yeah. And about bringing us together, groups, and be open. And also to be very open to criticisms. And don't be rude and have compassion, but can have very good difference of ideas. And this difference of ideas actually will power us up in that sense to get things over, because we all know, I think, right now at this point in time, that the world is no longer the same. I am experiencing it, and I'm trying to fit to it all the time, right, Dr. LB?
Yes, I think, mentorship is not just about us teaching students. There's also reverse mentorship. That means we are learning from the students as well. We are learning, very, very valuable lessons from them. And so it's actually the whole concept of education to that extent is changing. It's more about dialogue. It's not really about a lecturer coming to the class and feeding you with lots of information.
Yeah.
It's really about having a dialogue with students, an interchange of ideas, and everybody is learning, and everybody is benefiting from that process.
Yeah, there was once a saying, there is a saying in fact, the easiest way to learn is to teach. When you teach somebody, and like I said, we have a lot of group works. So when we do group work, somebody will be leading it, and the rest of them will learn.
Absolutely.
And when this person, and the person who's learning the most are the lecturers.
Absolutely.
Because we are listening to all of them.
Yes, and also every day we do our research, we prepare our materials over and over again, because we are also not robots. We also want to be better.
Right.
So therefore, we always get very good updated case studies, and also to make sure that all the things that we're doing is fresh and new, because we also want to know what exactly is fresh and new.
Yes.
We also want to be connected to know that how do we go about, well, in our own little way, contributing to the society, right? So this is, in fact, the mentality and also the thought processes of our lecturers, and so the spirit that we hold on to. Yeah?
Right.
As
So
a
I'd
matter of fact-
like to mention this, please, that Steve Jobs, I know he has passed away, rest in peace. He gave a talk at Stanford, and it became very popular, and everybody talked about it, etc. And the words he left us with, like I said, the impact. He says that he was driving along a road which was a dirt track, and he saw a sign, and he doesn't know who put up that sign. It could have been the owner of the place, we don't know. And the sign said these 4 words, which will remain with him till the day he left. He said, the sign said, stay hungry, stay foolish.
Stay hungry and stay foolish.
Yeah.
The drive, and also always don't be complacent, thinking that you know everything. Because I tell you, all of us, we don't know everything,
Absolutely.
but we know something, and we're going to get that something that we do not know, and this process will go on.
And it will go on, because
and it'll be good.
education itself is dynamic. You will learn things, and when you discuss, we will learn. Even at our age, we are called senior lecturers.
Yeah.
I rather call myself a junior, but anyway, it's something that we learn
Yeah.
every day.
I tell my
really.
students, right, I'm actually an iPad 2, old model, but I promise that I will update my software.
Yes.
The iOS will always be the best, but because iPad 2 run a bit slower, give us a bit more time. Give space, right? So that we can all learn together. And this is That's what I always tell them.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's a wonderful tool in management now, and it has taken itself directly from communications. It's
Yeah.
actually from filmmaking. It's called scenario building. So it said that the word scenario, of course, comes from communications, comes from movies.
Yep.
And scenario building is telling you how to take care of your future. And I think two of the simplest techniques that they came up with is always prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, number one. That means how will you survive
Yeah.
if the world is really going to be in a terrible shape tomorrow. So you prepare yourself for the worst case scenario. But this is where it gets interesting. Wonderful miracles also happen. Nobody would have dreamt that Mark Zuckerberg would be one of the
Yes.
richest men in the world. So you must also prepare yourself for the best case scenario. So many people do prepare themselves for the worst case scenario, and that's fine. But you should also prepare yourself for a world that is going to be wonderful for you. So what can you do today to make sure that you will grasp all the opportunities that come your way if the world is a fantastic and wonderful place? And that preparing yourself for both worlds, I would say, is a wonderful way. It's also a realistic way to survive, number one, but also to prosper and thrive. And I think I would say that coming to MDIS is one of the ways that you are preparing, yes, of course, for the worst case scenario, to learn how to survive, but you're also preparing yourself for the best case scenario, that if the world is a wonderful place, you come to MDIS and we are equipping you with all the skills that you need in order to grasp all the wonderful opportunities that will come your way. I really believe that scenario building in this sense, this balance between the worst case scenario, learn how to survive in bad times, but also believe in the best case scenario, that the world is a wonderful place and miracles happen, and be prepared to grasp all those opportunities that will come your way.
Dr. LB, Dr. Amir,
Yeah.
you're beautiful.
Thank you.
Really, today,
Thank you.
this conversation has got wonderful surprises for me and new learning, because while we are preparing for this, for sharing with everybody, I also get to see you in a different light, and also
you.
all the wonderful things that shine forth. And this is exactly what Dr. LB said. You know, when you come for studies and you study every day, it might be very difficult, but look at all the beautiful things, all the accidental stuff that actually happens in the school, happens all around you, and you will be able to see that, hey, actually life is not bad, right? It's all in the mind.
Yep.
How we change the
True.
perspective
Absolutely.
and change the paradigm. With this, thank you so much for tuning in today, and hope that you guys watch us, keep us there, and we hope to meet you again. All the best.
Thank you.